Hey, it's Benny and Amanda. We are still in London. This is day 2 of the Europe tour slash vacation slash super hardworking touring musician and muscle uh, on tour. And today was the first show, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we want to tell you a little bit about our day. We did a different coffee shop this morning. Amanda found this shop through one of the podcasts she listened to. Shout out to the podcast.
Filter Stories, I think.
Filter
It
Stories.
was an episode all about kind of a coffee shop's role in the community and like staying your friendly neighborhood coffee shop and what it means to be involved in your community. So this coffee shop is called Caffeine with a K. And it's teeny tiny little broom closet of a coffee shop. It was a little bit bigger, but we just happened to be there at a very busy time, so it felt even cozier. But really delicious breakfast food and really amazing coffee.
You had a Uganda.
I had a coffee from their featured guest roaster because, like my coffee shop, they do a guest roaster program, which is really great. It's
Shout out Plata Coffee in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
We don't get paid for those shout outs. Right?
Someday. You never know. Plata's big time. I know the manager.
That's me.
Oh.
No, so I had a coffee from their guest roaster. Guest roasting spots are just a great way to feature different roasters either in your area who maybe get different types of coffees or whatever.
Build your community.
Yeah.
Coffee community.
And it was a really delicious fruit-forward Ugandan coffee.
And we got some avo toast and some Greek yogurt and granola that had these little dollops of like fruit puree. We were talking a lot about breakfast, but listen, it's the most important meal of the day.
It left an impression for sure.
It was a great shop, and Amanda took these really super dope shots that should be they're great. Of their sweet logo and their cool like shiplap.
You can get a picture, not that I was doing espresso shots.
Shots.
I wish I was.
You would have.
But after that, we walked to the British Museum.
Because we're in Britain.
Which, because of their like colonizing heritage, they have a lot of treasures from around the world that they have borrowed.
There's someone that went through with some heavy editing. It was like, we negotiated
their holdings. I've got big feelings about that. If you want to know about it, you can talk to me. Yeah. But it was really special to see a lot of really amazing pieces from all over the world that represented a lot of different cultures, both present and ancient. And ancient history is my jam. So it was really cool to see a lot of Assyrian and ancient Greek and Roman sculpture and relief. I mean, just huge replicas of like, basically the ancient Assyrians kept all their records on their like living room walls. Yeah. So anything you imagine, if your entire family history was just posted in your home.
In an interesting way, Rome did that too, like with the masks. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was a very your name lives on through eternity.
So a lot of storytelling
and Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we saw Egyptian.
Yeah.
They had one of the heads from Easter Island. That was pretty cool. I something I'd want to see in my lifetime, and then I'm like, oh, there's one. So that was neat. They had a lot of some Ramses II
I learned
artifacts.
Something about those Easter Island heads that I didn't know before. That there are 2 different names for them, and I'm gonna butcher them, so I'm not even gonna try. But basically, some of the heads face outward and are defensive, and some of the heads face inward and are like reflective of the culture and community, and like some are to kind of protect you from outsiders, and some are about nurturing inward relationships.
She knows how to read, so she probably read all the placards.
Half of them. We kind of sped our way through there.
We spent several hours there. They have a gigantic Parthenon room from Greece, and it was like very well designed. Where like one end of the room was like one of the tops. They have, if you know Parthenon, there's like little triangular tops, and they're always decorated with a scene of something, and then underneath it is relief, and there's like all the way around the building. So on those little triangular tops, I wish I could remember what they were called. They had like one at each end, so it felt like you were in the Parthenon,
like exploring it.
Yeah, it was really well done. Also borrowed from Greece.
Right. Well, half of the collection is supposed to be in Athens, and half of it is in the British Museum.
Yep.
And a lot of the original pieces were destroyed because during a conflict with the Ottoman Empire, the Venetians that were holed up in the Parthenon were storing all their ammunition in the Parthenon. And all their ammunition blew up and destroyed a lot of really cool history.
Don't get her started on history, man. She got a lot of stories for you. Also, shout out another podcast, our boy, Dan Carlin. Love that guy. If you guys like history, or you like someone that will make history sound a little more interesting, if you're not, that's your guy. Because he's like a super fan of history, but he's also got some great storytelling, and like grew up in the 80s playing like word games, and he like has all these interesting takes on the world and history. That's a lot of podcast shout outs on one video.
It's not gimmicky. It sounds like a guy in it, like a singular.
He's your friend. He's our friend.
In a room, like across the table from me, with just like a singular light bulb hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, half interrogation, half storytelling.
But it was really great to, like, I just recently finished his King of Kings series, which is all about the ancient Assyrians up to the Greeks and Romans, I believe.
Well, they do all the way through.
So they cover a lot of ancient Assyria and Persia. At any rate,
British Museum.
Lesson of the day is to not store your guns in a china cabinet next to like all of your family heirlooms, aka the Parthenon.
Yeah. Also, just incredible museum. Really well done. Really beautiful building on top of all that. We left the British Museum. We got some lunch at a little like food hall because
because they just can't escape them.
Yeah. Shout out again, Plata Coffee and Sama Market. All right. So then who have hired me before, so I can't, gotta be friendly.
After that, we went shopping.
We went shopping because my buddy Ben Cannon, shout out 45 Creations, which is his company that helps artists book shows, book short run tours. It's a really great business. They also do like poster design, all the things. They designed the poster for this tour, so shout out to those guys. But he has had artists come over here before, and they like do a pop-up show in a guitar shop or music shop, and then end up buying the guitar from that show and then using it on the tour, and they either raffle it off or make it a collectible thing, or whatever. So that was his idea, and it kind of gets around the hassle of getting from the States to Europe with a guitar. And we went to a few different shops and ended up going to the one that originally was going to host our little pop-up show, but the details never came together, and found this really killer guitar made in England. And here's the kicker. The brand is Tanglewood. And if you know your Benny Bassett history, that was the first band I started in Chicago. So it felt like a circular moment, a full circle, or a cool coincidence. Not weird. It's cool.
A spooky triangle.
Sure. So anyway, it sounded really beautiful. It sounded really nice. I had my eyes on this other one that was very similar to the one we got for Amanda recently. I said that I got for Amanda recently. So anyway, ended up with that. And then we came back to the hotel and then headed out to Earl's Court, which is like southwest London. And took the tube out there and went to the Troubadour, which was really famous. I'm sure you've seen me posting about it, but literally anyone in music from like the 60s on, and they had a really like a huge period when they started around the 60s. So like Jimi Hendrix, Paul Simon, I almost said Adele, that's not the 60s. I was trying to think of the Stones, Led Zeppelin, like a lot, Bob Dylan, a lot of folks that have graced that stage. And then more currently, Ed Sheeran, Adele,
Rachel Welch
Florence and the Machine.
Welch, I'm thinking of Raquel Welch.
I was like,
Florence Welch.
So anyway, just a lot of famous folks in a really cool space. Felt very British. It's a coffee shop. It's a music venue. It's a bar and restaurant. It's like they kind of do it all. Mm-hmm. But mention of two of the guys that opened for me tonight, Ivo del Santo. And he was the nicest young guy. Played first. He made these t-shirts today. He was like, this is such a cool opportunity. Yeah, like made him himself. And I can't help but like kind of love that more than anything in the world. So he gave this to me, and I'm going to be repping it on the rest of the tour and in this video.
Part of the structure for Ben to play the Troubadour was for him to secure openers who were local, and which was a really great way also for us to meet people. But I was really struck tonight with both of the openers, like how they made sure to just like say a word of thank you to Ben for like including them in all of this, and maybe not even realizing that their presence was just equally as valuable, like that we really needed them there also. And
that was the first thing I said when I went on stage. The other guy's name is Lee Michael Stevens, or Lee Stevens, and he was also he went for it, man. He had a good time.
He has a great voice. Both
it was like
so talented.
It was. I'm just picking musicians through friends randomly. Like I don't know what their live show is going to be like. It's hard to know how they're going to be as human beings, you know. And it was wonderful. I really, you know, I said at the beginning of the show, I was like, this show doesn't happen without you guys. So, you know, and also there are a lot of you back home that helped support the show and made it happen. So just so you know, if you're listening, it was awesome. It was, I was moved almost to tears a little bit because in the States a lot, if you've been to shows, sometimes folks will go see the band they want to see and then take off. And it's kind of like this rotation of fans through the night as you have openers and then the headliner. And tonight, folks came down for Ivo. They stayed for Lee. Then they stayed for me. And they were like singing along. Then Amanda had her rock star moment tonight. We decided to do this Crowded House cover that we've started doing recently. And people in the audience started singing along. And it was just an empowering evening for both of us.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
You know, like, I really love that I get to join Ben for shows, but I also, like, I felt pretty strongly that, like, being a full-time musician is not for me. And when we did that Crowded House song together, I, like, totally, like, felt the electricity. I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I, like, understand why people totally change their lives around doing this, because it feels so good. And that was, I think that's like the most like a rock star I've ever felt, when I had folks singing Don't Dream It's Over with me in this little downstairs bar. But it was also just really electric, like sharing that moment with you. Really, really, really special.
Yeah, it was really cool. We had folks from Illinois in the room, folks from Massachusetts in the room, folks from Belgium in the room. It was just a wild night. I'm super grateful. We're both like, our hearts are just all filled up. And then I had to just make up our way home because our last tube had left. It was we stayed late with several of the folks from the show, Ivo and his friends. And they were all awesome. They told us about this festival we're going to go to next week, the Notting Hill Festival, which is like one of the biggest festivals in London. So we're going to get the full indoctrination. Is that the right word?
No.
Okay, well, some word that's like that, but not as loaded. Anyway, is there anything else from day 2?
No.
Did you have a highlight? Any funny things that kids said?
Oh, when we were at the British Museum, the very first thing, like upon entering,
how do we forget the Rosetta Stone?
Spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, go ahead. You want to do the whole video again? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like, it was packed. The museum probably had thousands of people in it today. It was so many people. And everybody was crowded around this one exhibit, and we're like, that's got to be the Rosetta Stone. And so as we're kind of filing to look at it, there's a little kid on his dad's shoulders, and he goes, why is everybody obsessed with this boring rock?
Big, dumb rock is what he said. I want to turn around and be like, you're only speaking this language because of this rock. No, that's not true. Or that's a different one. That's the Rosetta Stone app. That's how we figured out hieroglyphics. And what I really love, I make this joke sometimes on the road, if I just keep saying the title of my songs, that people will remember them. And I love that the way that they kind of worked on the hieroglyphics was they kept mentioning the Ptolemy family, like Ptolemy dynasty. It was like repeated on the stone. So they were like, oh, they're talking about themselves. That's how they started to. So it works. It was not just some philosophy I made up. Benny Bassett songs and hieroglyphics. That's the end of this video.
See you tomorrow.
See you guys.